GM friends, welcome to the show where we deep dive into the intersection of AI and blockchain with the chads that are merging these two worlds together. This is GigaBrains. I'm your host, Colonel Saunders. I've worked in emerging tech for close to 20 years, including AI and machine learning at Amazon HQ. Today's guest, Mathias Dail, founder and CEO and CTO of Exorde. For anyone that's unfamiliar, Exorde is a decentralized platform that records and analyzes billions of social media news posts in real time, processing an insane amount of transactions already, my friend, but also providing actionable data on global sentiment, conversational trends, all those things those of us deep diving into knowledge and research care about. So, Mathias, welcome, my friend. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you've had an inspiring journey. I think when you and I spoke, you mentioned starting as a software and distributed systems engineer, and then now you're a founder. Can you share a little bit about your experience in maybe data science and maybe how NLP shaped your approach? Maybe even talk about what NLP means for folks that are new to AI.
Absolutely. Indeed, I've been very fortunate to have such an accelerated journey in tech, I would say compared to others. Uh, Even though there's so much to do and so much to build yet, of course. But it just starts from an idea, just like that, with a couple of friends. It gets serious. You get into it, you spend more and more serious work on it, and then suddenly you're running a company, and just one day at a time, and you're there.
What about, talk a little bit about your background pre-crypto? Because I think, for someone like myself that comes from the world of AI, you know, listen, and I'm sure we'll get into this. There's a lot of vaporware out there. I think in general, developing for AI is a lot more technical and complicated than a lot of other things. So, maybe share a little bit about your background pre-crypto, kind of what brought you into where you are now.
Absolutely. So I come from I would say, a traditional engineering background. So I'm a software engineer at the core, networking, embedded systems, distributed architectures, uh, programming, and then I've done a few years abroad where I've worked and studied exclusively data. At the same time, I've always been a very curious technologist, I would say, and I've been monitoring closely the crypto space, the decentralization sphere, since actually when Ethereum came out, so August 2015. So soon it will be 10 years. Time flies. And it's nice that you mentioned there's a lot of vaporwares and so on, because that has been my impression, and I was looking from the side, always thinking in my head, I like these technologies. I know data is the future. AI is just the nice cherry on top of data, but it's all about data in the end. And I always thought that decentralization, blockchain, is a really cool idea for money transfer, sure, but there's something to do with information itself. It makes sense. It has a natural feel to it, and just like that, the idea for Exorde came, and of course matured over the years.
I love it, man. No, you're 100% right. I mean, going back to when I worked at Amazon, like we were a data company, right? And that's what we were doing is we were leveraging, enormous first party data sets to, to start to draw trends and conclusions and, utilize those for upsell. So couldn't agree with you more. Glad to see a real AI builder in the space. So, love to talk a little bit more, about kind of journey and vision. I've obviously used the product, seen obviously the incredible traction that you guys have had in terms of usage, but, Xord analyzes billions and billions of social media posts a day in real time. And I think, as someone that comes from Web 2, I look at this as it's really something that can help businesses understand, global conversations and sentiment, which are so important because again, like you're really trying to understand your target customer, kind of where they live at that point in time, potential future needs, current needs. What inspired you to create Exorde, and how do you think it stands out from, maybe traditional social media intelligence platforms?
That's a great question. It has been a journey when it comes to maturing the company and its strategic positioning, I would say. And 2023, and especially this year, 2024, has been critical to this positioning. So first, it started with the idea of creating, building from scratch, very deep tech style. Sure, it's hybrid Web3, but we are deep tech company. We were 8 engineers and PhDs for 2.5 years, just building and solving new problems because we're the first to try this decentralized data network thing, and so we have had to solve a lot of challenges. And so the first results is the data, and then you think you're in the you think you're in the social media space. You think you That's what we thought at the beginning, that we would be a social listening company with nice analytics on trends and so on. But over time, we're realizing that launching Exord was actually a double play. At the same time, it's a play within crypto, within Web3, because it's a network that produces data for businesses. And usually in crypto, it remains in crypto. The product itself is crypto, or crypto products or protocol and so on. So first, there is this play to utilize crypto as base infrastructure to produce something of value for a lot of businesses, a lot of industries, way outside of crypto. So that's the first play for Exord.
Yeah.
That was understood from the start. But the second play that we realized very quickly is that we are a big data play, actually. We are now positioning upstream as a data provider, because at the same time, since we launched Exord, there has been this big shift around data. 2022 was the big AI data year, OpenAI LLM boom. Even though we've been in NLP since 2020, NLP, natural language processing. So the great part of AI, for those who are watching who don't know, AI is composed of fields. In these fields, you have computer vision, everything that with pattern recognition on your phone, Snapchat, filters, and so on. You have a lot of traditional machine learning and so on, and you have NLP, everything that's about text analytics, making machines understand text. And it has been traditionally, until 2020, 2018, the field of AI that was lagging a lot. It was quite rubbish in terms of advancement until then. It's needless to say, it was very basic. It was very limited. Could not do a lot of things with it. And then
I'm
there,
just laughing, not to interrupt. I'm just laughing because I couldn't agree more. Like, I remember when I started in AI back in the day. I mean, what the technology was doing, what it was capable of, it was very rudimentary, obviously compared to what we're now seeing in 2024. So yeah, 100%.
yeah, absolutely. It has been a real transformation, and I've actually witnessed that shift as I was studying and working, and utilizing new concept models and technique that were developed like weeks ago. And it was a really fun trend, fun era to be in. And so now NLP is very, very serious, and I think the entire AI boom is actually an NLP boom.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but of course, AI is simpler for marketing purposes. But yeah,
I'm gonna go off course for a second and just bring something up, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So yeah, I agree with everything that you said. When OpenAI kind of first launched, as someone that worked in AI and machine learning, my first instinct wasn't like, "Woo, this is awesome." My first instinct was, "Oh no, like what's going to happen?" And the reason I say it is because, if you look at platforms, like an OpenAI, right, where you have consumers effectively using them day to day, they're going to start to get, wowed by the technology, and they're going to start to input much more sensitive data, right? So I go back to kind of the early days of the internet with like a WebMD, right, where you had folks going on the platform and trying to self-diagnose themselves. Now fast forward, OpenAI comes out, and I know for a fact people do this because friends have told me they've done it. It's like they start importing, medical records and health records and asking for, conclusions and findings. And I think this is great, and I think this, candidly is one of the great use cases of AI, down the road, obviously AI agents. But the reason why I was so worried was I was like, all of this very, very sensitive personal data is going to be stored centrally on, OpenAI servers or whatever cloud provider they use. And sure enough, I don't remember how long ago this was. I think it was like a couple months back. There was an OpenAI hack, and I was like, there you go, right? So I think for me, like, one of the reasons why AI and crypto, or AI and blockchain, have just made so much sense to me is, you have to decentralize all of this data, right? And even like a more simple example, I can't tell you how many times like hotel websites or retail websites have been hacked. And then what happens with that data? It could end up in the hands of a data broker. It could end up in the hands of a third party. But at the end of the day, like, do you really want all of that sensitive information about yourself in one centralized location that someone can effectively, steal and nefariously use? So, anyways, like, just love your take on this in general, because I think this is why I am so bullish and excited about things like Exorde on a personal level.
Well, first, thanks, and yeah, definitely. There's a lot of aspects to the AI problem. Of course, there's data centralization of hardware, of data itself. Of yeah, it's a lot of problems, and crypto, I think, can tackle some of them. But mostly, I think in crypto, and that's a word we hear a lot. It's kind of a shift in paradigm. Uh, just a different way of doing things. And concretely, what it means sometimes for data, it means that you will do something differently with perhaps less than centralized competitors. But yeah, it's a new paradigm, a new way to focalize our resources. Essentially, I would say.
Yeah. So just to sum it up for anyone that's new to AI, decentralized AI is much safer than centralized AI. So, check out Exorde if you haven't yet. One thing you called out, which I wasn't surprised by, you mentioned that you have, 8 developers and a number of PhDs on the team. When I go back to my kind of AI machine learning days, yes, like, I had an entire data science team in India that I worked with. A decent amount of the engineers and developers that I worked with were PhDs. And I think it's because, as you know, like, this is not a first time developer vertical, right? Like folks that build in AI tend to be very sophisticated, very accomplished. I think oftentimes even have kind of research backgrounds or, experimentation backgrounds, because you are inventing a new technology, you are paving the way into kind of new frontiers. So, one thing I'd love to hear from you, like, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced? I mean, obviously, not just building, a robust AI product, but you're also obviously processing and analyzing, a significant amount of global social media data. How do you overcome some of these obstacles, like managing vast data sets, or, addressing language diversity, or even, one thing I know people have called out with OpenAI, like ensuring real time accuracy versus just historic, data.
Good points. So indeed, one of the first things that we were good at by nature of what we were building. So this decentralized set of nodes physically distributed around the globe on physically distributed hardware, and running quite some intelligent software to find data, to process it efficiently. So it was real-time data. We are quite good at that. Managing large data sets, then it comes to trade-offs. We made some trade-offs. We have decided to archive just part of it,
Hmm.
not all of it. And of course, for example, if today you consume our full real-time data feed, you have way more data than we actually archive. And so you are free to archive it if you want. Um, but also we have the important point is that we handle text, and we only handle and process text today. Perhaps this will change in the future. For example, we might start analyzing the audio and video content online, but we believe text is a good start because it's efficient. um, Even though we process millions and millions of items per hour, per day, and so on, we still manage, and we have a very optimized system for storage. It's really not the biggest part of the technical problem we're solving. I would say the biggest part is reliability, reliably processing the data and keeping an uptime. And it's actually a very fun fact. It's quite a coincidence actually that today, and I'm not making this up, is actually the 1 year anniversary of complete total uptime. Yeah,
Hey, happy anniversary. That's exciting.
yeah, that's pretty nice. That's pretty
Yeah.
nice. And so yes, keeping this uptime was really the challenge because of all the new things we had to improve on our side, help increase in terms of resilience, capacity, latency in terms of blockchain technology, because we are really a hybrid project. We are at the crossroads of many technologies, and our goal really is to really combine them in an efficient manner. And I will pronounce the word efficiency a lot because that's really what we are all about. We're using efficient AI, we are using efficient systems. We are really, really competitive in that sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think the efficiency thing is key. Like you and I all know this, but like for anyone that's new to crypto, I think one of the, or I guess I should say like AI crypto, one of the things that I've seen over the years is, it is very much about kind of the data that's used to teach, right? And so there's a little bit of this, quality in, quality out. I think what I find so interesting about Exord is like the quality in is guaranteed, right? Because you're leveraging this real time social data. I think, one of the questions that I had, which I think you got into, was like, how do you process all of this so quickly? Because again, the data set is so large and so robust. And you do have what I call quality in, how are you ensuring quality out? But it sounds like a lot of it has just been, experimentation and building new processes and systems to ensure that efficiency. Yeah.
Absolutely, it has been a truly iterative process, and we are far from finishing this process because at the end of the road, they are they are really open research questions or fields. I would say I can clarify with some examples so that everybody understands. So,
Mm,
for example, Exorde currently today, you have all these nodes that have intelligence built in to kind of cover the data in terms of topic, in terms of conversations. Efficiently again to not overlap because Exord is at its core is a protocol plus an infrastructure, but the
yep.
protocol itself is a set of rules that just ensures that it will reward the first two information. It rewards relevance, realness, and up-to-dateness, if I can say. And
Mhm.
because our goal is to have a lot of data, good data, very fast. So that's why the rules are built in like this. And so the first challenge was to distribute automatically all these nodes in a decentralized fashion without central coordination so that they cover conversations with statistical probabilistic approach and all that. So that was the first challenge we
Mm.
managed, but this can always be improved and it could always be more elaborate, um, and it will be a path in the future. Something else that's important is actually also the how to say how to process all this data very fast. One
Mhm.
thing we have done is that these nodes are not just data collectors; they have AI modules carefully embedded in them in each
Wow.
of the 1,000 plus nodes that run today. And that's why all the nodes pre-process with AI a lot of this data, and then when it arrives, it's already in a form where it's very fast to serve, and that's why we can be real time.
That's
So
pretty cool.
yeah,
I was not
massive parallel.
aware. I mean, full transparency, I was not aware you were developing AI nodes, which I think is the first I've heard of this in the industry. But that makes total sense. How do you more efficiently operate? You make the operators more efficient, and effectively enable them to continue to increase that efficiency through machine learning. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What we provided is a set of tools, quite a sophisticated software client to run on the nodes, and then the node operator themselves can focus on higher level problems like strategy, source specialization, and so it creates really a network where you have specializations today in our network, and you have nodes operators that are quite expert in their field, and that's where
Mhm.
the beauty comes, the beauty of decentralization of such kind of a participative infrastructure. Uh, some people in the network have skills way beyond what I could do, but well beyond what my team could do. It's a different focus, so it really helps. Build all together like this, and I think it's a nice model at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The power of building in public, my friend.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, kind of what's actionable and maybe how folks can leverage the technology. I think like one thing that I've noticed, playing around on the platform is it obviously goes beyond just presenting kind of what people are saying. It really, I think, gets deeper into sentiment, which is really about feeling and emotion, how people are feeling at this point in time. And, I think as a marketer, I always find that important because, it's not just about kind of what they're talking about, it's why they're talking about it or how they're talking about it, right? And that's where you can, really start to align things effectively. How do you guys quantify sentiment? And I guess, how do you ensure that the insights that you're getting on that sentiment are accurate and actually actionable for businesses, both in Web 2 and Web 3?
So f- these are two questions I would say. The first is, how do we compute sentiment and emotions, and of course any other analysis? The quick answer is a set of specialized and efficient AI modules that are all focusing on a different part. And on this part, it's actually not that advanced in terms of what large AI companies are doing today. They are investing a lot more resources, and they are probably having a more accurate sentiment analysis. Even though ours is quite nice, emotional analysis itself is also very precise. Um, the really interesting question is, how do you guarantee any users, clients, that the data will be actionable, that it can be trusted, that Exorde Labs has not tampered with, I don't know, the models in between, has not changed the way it calculates sentiment every Sunday. This is the important part. It's actually quite a challenge. How do you improve a system without disrupting the system too much? Because the product is data that you can compare over time, that you can analyze over time. This is really but this is a more general analytics issue in general, real-time analytics, streaming analytics. You have to make sure that the stream is, of course, comparable over time. And on that part, it's kind of a point we have already discussed. It's how we collect information. Today, Exalt, it's a question that we have often.
Hmm.
Do we decide what to collect? Do we have a specific list of topics? For example, 5,000 topics, 10,000 topics? No, we don't. We collect with a very statistical, probabilistic kind of sampling, just like how polling companies do. But
Yeah.
we do it at a very large scale with information and make sure that we have all trends. We may not have 99% or 100% of all the posts, of all trends, of all topics, but we can guarantee that we have a very representative sample day after day, and you have everything in it. For example, we had the thousands and thousands of posts about celebrities drama, even though it's not our focus. We have, of course, we have a bias in terms of coverage. We are way better at covering tech, I would say tech, crypto, politics, news. It's a huge sphere, but I mean, there are other subsectors that are less looked at. But that's about it. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I think like one thing I want to double click on is like you brought up earlier. There's there are big tools and great tools, but I think like one of the challenges, I'll just call it out, is like accessibility. So when I worked at Amazon or worked with other big tech companies in the past, like they typically aren't first party tools, right? Typically, we're licensing third party tools that are available in the market. The challenge becomes they're very expensive. So, like, I've now been, full time crypto, the CMO of 3 projects. And one of the first questions I get asked from folks is, what tools do you want to use in order to do X, Y, and Z? And the challenge becomes like some of these tools can be $10,000 a month at minimum, right? So, if I were to add up the tools that I used, or even I did do some actual sentiment analysis focus group testing on, campaigns and things that I worked on. I mean, those types of experiments, oftentimes are also 6 figures. You're having to do pretty significant retainer deals with companies. So, it's funny when a lot of projects ask me about this stuff, I say, it's probably not worth it, right? Because you might end up spending half your budget to pay for these tools to analyze things when you could be spending that money to drive awareness or, build positive sentiment or drive first time trials. So shout out to you guys for creating something that I think is pretty robust and awesome, that's actually accessible for folks. So, anyone out there that's a marketer that's listening, go check it out, because you probably know a lot of the tools that I'm, mentioning without naming them. And you're probably saying to yourself what I used to say, which is, I can't afford these things, right? So I think Exorde's, creating a pretty nice solution for people. So shout out to you guys. I want to talk user growth a little bit. With growing interest from various sectors in the AI space, like, what has been your approach to to scaling the company, to scaling Exorde?
So this has been as well a challenge,
Mm,
just by positioning ourselves as an upstream data provider. We now have to deal with different types of clients,
yeah,
of use cases, and this is of course a challenge. And we are trying to scale up to face this challenge. And it's really a business types of challenge. This is beyond technology. And how do you approach it? First, we have understood that what kind of products we have to release. Today,
mhm,
we have two APIs, a set of dashboards, so very concrete, real tools that should cover most use cases. Of course, that doesn't solve everything, but we have, for example, an API for the use cases like finance, marketing analytics, brands, and so on, where you want to, for example, if you want to query the top 100 cryptocurrencies, sentiment, emotions, popularity every 10 minutes. You can do it. It's very simple. But then there are other use cases. We are in discussion with a lot of players in defense, in cyber threat, which is
mhm,
actually becoming more and more important, especially since the start of this year. And this type of client and use cases are very different. They don't necessarily know the scope of what they are looking for. They usually want it all. They usually have their own very specific pipelines to integrate, process the data, extract insights. And that's how we understood that we are a data play, not it's quite subtle, but we are not anymore a social media intelligence or social listening company. We don't provide the best dashboards. We don't provide the best emotional analysis in the world. Perhaps we do,
mhm.
but we know what we can do is provide the best data every day at large volumes, something that we solve a ton of problems. And you mentioned licensing. This is a great point, actually. We, we've received that comment quite a few times recently. We solve a lot of licensing problems. You don't have to sign 1,000 deals anymore. You just use our stream and you have all the data that's aggregated in one place. That's already a huge pain point that's solved. And then at the scale of this coverage is another problem that's solved, because today, some people are struggling to do in a month what we do in a day, because we specialize in doing just that. And that's why we believe it's a strategic positioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's smart being super focused. I'm going to spill something that I think you'll find interesting. So, we should definitely do a follow up and do a tutorial where you walk folks through kind of the top 100, sentiment analysis. I think there's a lot of traders out there that would benefit from that. So I'm a big trader myself, and it's really interesting. Like, when I first got into crypto full time about 3 years ago, I kind of said to myself, like, crypto and social are so interconnected, and you obviously know this, you're running a data company behind it. And it was interesting when I was talking to some of these platforms that I mentioned that are unaffordable for projects. I was calling them and saying, do you offer startup packages? Most of them don't. Even if they do, they're very expensive. And I was always so curious. I just wanted to know, like, is there anyone else in the industry that's currently using these platforms right now? And I assumed what I would hear from them is, this chain, or this large scale kind of B2B player in crypto is. And instead, the most common client was a VC. And it's just really interesting to me, because what that means is that, and these are very large crypto native VCs that everybody would know. But when I start to see those names licensing the technology, I'm saying to myself, okay, this makes total sense. Like, they see the value in paying $250,000, $500,000 a year for this technology, because they agree that quote unquote social sentiment has a very large impact on this stuff. And so example could be, you all of a sudden see a positive sentiment shift on something and you are outpacing the timeline, right? Or you start to see, a pretty significant uptick in chatter around a certain sector of crypto. And then a day later, you see all of the tokens in that vertical start to go up, right? So I don't think people fully understand yet how powerful like social data and social sentiment data is around the movement that they then see in the market. But I definitely do. And it's pretty obvious that the VCs do too. So, again, anyone that's a trader, this is an opportunity for you to effectively replicate what they're doing, at a fraction of the price. So, shout out to you
Exactly.
guys. Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great point that you mentioned that. So I will take the opportunity to re-emphasize what you just said again.
Yeah.
This is the main point. People really don't know if social media data is relevant. I tell you, it is relevant. It has a focus. It is a real trend. It is a $1 billion market, multi-billion-dollar market. If you include cyber threat, intelligence, defense, the AI dataset sector that's booming since 2022. So social data or public data is booming. That's a fact. And secondly, today, if you're hearing us, you're a small algorithmic trading firm, you're a hobbyist trader, you have your algorithm, you want more data feed, you want to innovate, you want to get an edge, you have this research development vibe in you, you don't have any alternatives today than to try our services because there simply is no flexibility in the analytics industry. That's something we try to change.
Yeah.
As a data company, we're very flexible. We are able to serve you small use cases. You can serve small traders, big firms, large companies. We are extremely scalable, both on the data and the business side. And so if you have ideas, you want to try them out and not ruin you or even commit something that you believe is too much or it's not beyond your reach anymore. That's why we launched Exorde. We are just excited to support the small players and the big players, and I think that's important to point out, especially since 2022. We know that the research kind of open source intelligence field got hit very hard because platforms really understood the value of their data and locked it up. Just that's that simple. So we don't promise something incredible, but what we promise is that we have something real. Come check it out. It's a real product, real data. It's straightforward. It's clear, and
Yeah, 100%. Like real and accurate is kind of what I would say. I mean, and I just want to say, I was laughing inside because you are correct. Like there is no flexibility in the analytics industry. And I'll tell you why, because, prior to crypto, like I sat under the largest media budget in the world for brands. It was $6 billion, right? And you would expect that, again, you're working with some of these third parties, you're paying them significant retainers, you would have the ability to say, I wish your product could do this, or I wish we could build out this new, this new dashboard experience, or I wish we could, merge these other data sets together. I think the challenge becomes with a lot of these big like B2B SaaS companies, it's too late, right? Like they're too late in the process to enable, customers to really impact and change their business model, right? I think one of the things that's really cool about Exorde and what I would say is just, early stage kind of projects that I've seen in blockchain is, you as a customer or client or evangelist, one, have accessibility to founders. And two, because it is so early stage in most of these technologies, if you can kind of call out a use case that you think is going to benefit you and also benefit a greater sector, which can then, create a business line or revenue stream for Exorde, like you're more willing to actually, experiment and try to invent those things for people. So I would say again, like, especially you called out before kind of, smaller VC firms, algorithmic trading firms is like, tap in because it's like, I guarantee you the platform you're using, which I'm familiar with, is not customizable to what you want, right? So, so I think that's actually like a huge value proposition for you guys. One thing I want to talk about, like just social media intelligence as a whole, like I'm sure you and I have both used a lot of the same tools over the past, 15 years. Some great, some terrible. But what do you foresee as like the future of social media intelligence? Obviously, social is just constantly evolving. Not just what you see, but maybe like how do you plan to stay at the forefront of this, ongoing transformation? I guess.
Yeah, this is a challenging question actually. I would say that the trends I'm picking right now is that just the field of public data analytics is going to expand. It will change its name. We will call of the entire field differently, and I think there will be it will be considered as very different sectors in the end. Uh, it will be subsectors, if you will. It's just a matter of perspective, but I believe, for example, there is a huge part today that's going into ESG analytics, something that's quite specific about companies and real-time risk monitoring. So this is going to continue its uptrend, I would say.
Mm.
And I think just the subfield of analytics are going to get more mature. So you got descriptive analytics, what we today we do very well, what people are saying currently with what emotion, sentiment, what intensity. So descriptive analytics, and then you will have predictive analytics and different other branches. And I think yeah, you will have specialized sectors like this, ESG. Um, i- Probably open research, open opinion, narrative monitoring, and this field is going to expand like this and get more diverse. And how do we intend to stay on top during that evolution? Is by I will use now a very classic expression. We will sell the picks and shovels to this race by being a data provider. That's why we want to position ourselves upstream, which is
Yeah.
a challenge because people don't understand what it really means. They think, okay, but your competitor is this one, right? No, we can sell to this one. Did you just name? We are data provider. There are not many data providers today. Of course, this type of companies by nature is more into the background because it serves others that then serve something to customers. But that's how we intend to stay in the course by being very good at one thing, providing data. We can be seen as an AI company, but our product, perhaps in the future it may be, but our product is not AI. We use AI, we improve with AI, but our product is data, and
Mm.
data will always be needed. You just mentioned it at the beginning, but yeah, data is forever. So
Data's king. I mean, it's, that's why like people would always ask me when I was at Amazon, like, how is Amazon so successful? I'm like, it's all the data, right? Because think about it, like, you're an Amazon customer and you've been a customer for 10 years, and there's now this enormous data set built against you, and that's one data set. But then next thing you know, you're also a Prime Video watcher, and there's another enormous data set built against you. Or, case in point, we had bought Whole Foods grocery stores. Let's say you're a Whole Foods shopper. Now there's another enormous data set built on you, right? So the power of that data and the power of like understanding and interpreting that data is so powerful because, case in point, let's say you're a new product that comes out and you're trying to figure out like the closest path to purchase. Like, it's that data that's going to enable it. And this is why, it's funny, like people used to always ask me like, what parts of Amazon are going to thrive in the future. I always said Amazon advertising, because again, using all this data takes you directly to the customer purchase, path, and you're bypassing awareness, sentiment. You're literally doing the most efficient targeting you can to just drive direct purchasing behavior. So shout out to you guys for understanding the value of data. um, so I know we're going to start wrapping up in a bit, but a couple things I want to click on. I want to talk a little bit about data privacy and security. Like we talked about this earlier, but I do think that's actually one of the biggest issues and concerns that I have with a lot of these centralized AI companies. With you guys managing a lot of data, and obviously I know privacy is a priority for you guys. How do you ensure that user data privacy while also adhering to regulations?
right. So first thing is that we are completely GDPR compliant.
Mm.
We're operating in the EU. We're also compliant with US laws. How do we do it? First, just by nature of what we're analyzing, what we're collecting, what we're processing, the field of public information, it kind of solves the problem on its own. for example, social media data, it's still a debate, and I think we will hear some interesting evolutions about it in the future. But it's kind of like if we just automated at a very large scale today an old concept which would have been to just read all the newspaper and annotate what you think is valuable, and you take notes, and then you sell those notes. That's what we sell.
Mm.
I like this analogy because it's very clear. You're just
Yeah.
selling your analysis. Some something someone said that at this state, you timestamp it and you add your metrics on top of it, and so this type of data will always be okay to sell because it's kind of just general intelligence or analytics. Now the word is analytics, but it's always been statistics, intelligence. It's always the same thing.
Yep.
But and then how do we ensure on a more deeper level, on a more technical level, how do we how 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 not to store personal private information, sensitive information? Well, for example, if there's a, a comment that we pick online that has visibly some kind of email address or something like that, we will auto remove it from our data set just to make sure, for example. And another big point is that our data is not about you, you who are listening to us. Our data is about the millions of conversations that are happening, the articles, the various forms of conversation in the general sense. Uh,
Mm.
uh, there are different medias, different ways to express them ourselves. It's all public. If it's public, we can analyze the flow of it all, the trends inside it, the intensity, the emotions that are inside this general data set, if you consider it as a large data set. That's what we are doing. We are not tracking you individually. We have no information about you. We don't even know where something is posted precisely. We are not like centralized companies like Twitter.
Mm.
We know, for example, the IP address of who tweeted that. We don't want to know that. We are not interested in that. We just care about the content and the large scale content analysis
The
because we believe,
text. Yeah.
yeah, we believe that's enough. That's an entire sector. It will even grow every year and over the next years and decades. We believe that's enough. Of course, there are other field of data which are more invasive by nature again, and we can blame them, but at the same time not so much because, well, for example, banking data, it's private by essence. You have a lot of data, health records and so on. We have kind of the advantage, or yeah, we have the advantage of being in a data field where it's easier, I would say, because it's just public conversations. But we've had a lot of questions or concerns that we were tracking people kind of 1984 style. People have this image that pops into their head. Oh no, Exorde is kind of the eye of Sauron, looking at me. No, it's not at all. And don't worry, there are other centralized companies doing that, but not us.
Yeah, 100%. So like we'll go back in time. So I worked literally with the Zuckerbergs to bring celebrities onto Facebook, right? I worked with Google to build YouTube multi-channel networks, back in the day. I worked with, founders of Twitter when they first launched. The I you should be worried about is the social platforms because, I I'll give you guys an example. Like go on Instagram. It's going to take you a while to find it, but go into your control center, go into kind of advertising preferences. You'll start to see the data profile that they built against you and how I would argue kind of invasive and personal it is. So, just for fun, I actually go in there and tweak my data set just to confuse them and I get served some really funny ads. But yeah, I am much less concerned about Exord than I am the platforms themselves.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to do, like we really like obviously involving our community and things, and letting them have a voice. So we do have a question that came in from one of our Scale community members and someone that's used Exord before. They said, what advice would you give to developers or businesses looking to integrate social media intelligence into their operations? So maybe a couple ideas of here's some quick, easy things to think about or consider. Yeah.
Right. So just for my quick memories of what were the different types of use cases,
Mm.
depending on if you're a web online business or online platform, or if there are social aspects to what you do, you could. first thing about UX, you can embed some live stats in your UX to look more modern. It can
Hmm.
work. We've had we've had use cases like this. Um, Imagine live dashboards, not dashboards, but it could be very simple. Like um, there is this thing in crypto, and I will use this example because the audience is probably not very aware of that. This crypto kind of thermometer, this the greed and fear index, fear and greed index. That's the right word.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, you could build stuff like this, something that is memorable to users going onto your website on top of our live metrics. It will be very simple to test, very cheap to operate day after day, and it could be just the little detail. So that's for the kind of visuals. Uh,
That's cool, by the way, because it's like I've looked at, oh god, maybe 10 different fear and greed indexes, but I've never seen a project like have their own fear and greed index. That's kind of cool. Yeah.
yeah, and in our data set, we have kind of the emotional metrics, and from them you can derive your own interpretation of fear and greed.
Mhm.
A couple of emotions you oppose together, something like that. It can be very straightforward. I've played with myself. I played myself with that concept, and it was quite powerful actually. We've had a nice metrics. For example, we had the sentiment of what traders on different trading platforms think about. I don't know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other like gold, silvers, stocks, and we have their own sentiment because they all discuss publicly on various specialized trading platforms and sharing ideas and so on. And so there's a lot of stuff you can do with our data. This is just a hint. It's quite powerful hint actually
It's
because
a good hint.
yeah,
I'm going to build one of these.
yeah, exactly. And
I'm like, this
yeah,
is good. This is good trading intel. That's awesome. Well, I think again, like, I can just say as a marketer, like, understanding general sentiment, understanding macro sentiment, understanding, user sentiment against your project or against dApps within your ecosystem, like a very, very powerful tool. Cause I've always said, great marketing starts with great research, right? You want to create things that are, aligned and informed, not just, owning the timeline and creating attention. So I think that's actually like a great example. So just to close out, there's obviously a lot of builders out there. I think like it's come across very clearly in this episode. You are a very qualified and experienced builder, which makes sense. You chose to go the AI big data path, but for folks out there that are inspiring builders that are maybe looking at the intersection of things like AI, blockchain, big data, data intelligence. What do you think are some of the skills or experiences needed for them to kind of really do this stuff the right way, or maybe get to the level that you guys are at?
so first, thanks a lot. I feel very humble. I feel like I'm just taking a few steps in the journey, and but yeah, I'm quite thankful already for what I have experienced, and of course to have been given this opportunity to leave Exorde and run my own company, my own project. It's at the same time a company, and it's an adventure because it's deep tech development within the crossroad within AI, data infrastructure, Web3, and it's very challenging, but also very, of course, very entertaining, cool. Just overall it's cool. And
It is fun.
so yeah, if you're an entrepreneur or you wish to become an entrepreneur and launch some kind of project, big or small really, you wonder, where do I start? It's always that. It feels like a big obstacle.
Mhm.
There's actually no big obstacle. You just go step by step, and like I said at the beginning of this chat, you suddenly find yourself running a company, but it was just step by step. Myself, I never set the goal to run a company. Actually, I'm just interested in ideas, in following what I like to do,
Yeah.
working where I find myself useful and relevant, and so on, and learning a lot. And the natural path was to launch the company, but don't I would say don't stress yourself to achieve things like this. I have my own company. It has achieved this status and then this other status. Just also big advice: don't follow what's the current shiny stuff. It's a big thing. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
You will always lag behind if you do that, because if something is shiny, it's probably already over. That's the thing. So I would say first, decide if you want to have this mentality, build and they will come, something that we hear quite often,
Mhm.
or have more like the market study approach and build exactly what's right with efficiency first and deliver something that's actually useful. And I take
Mhm.
the opportunity today that to reemphasize that yes, we are in crypto now. It's 2024. We serve real businesses. We are not vaporware. We, as a whole, Exorde, SKALE, the community, the ecosystem, we are becoming way more mature. The shift has
Mhm.
been very clear. So I would say for the past 2, 3 years, you can achieve something that really serve value uh, in the economy, not just the Web2 sphere, not just this quite weird space. It's really concrete. It's really you can do something really precise, can be real. That's the main point I'm making. Do
Yeah.
something real, start small, progress step by step. I mean, that's my own experience, so I cannot say more than that. And you will just find yourself further away than you may initially thought, but that's the fun part, I'd say.
I'm gonna say it again. Don't chase the shiny object. I mean, I'll tell you, as someone that's probably now worked with over 400 projects, the projects that I've invested in personally, because I do invest also, these are folks that again have very credible experience and backgrounds where I think again they have a very clear vision for what they're building, why they're building, and how they're going to build it, and they stay very focused on that. Right. I think some of the projects that I've become less bullish on over time, to your point, it's like they came in with a very clear mission, and then all of a sudden they chased five different narratives or five different shiny objects when they could have been progressing their core product towards that first initial mission. And I think the other thing people have to remember too is we are so early. Like I've worked in early social, digital, AR, VR, machine learning, autonomous vehicles, all these industries. We are still so early, right? So when we get things like regulation clarity in the US, you are then going to see a lot of more traditional, both large and small businesses come into the blockchain space, right? And obviously, they are going to want to, be able to analyze their data or analyze blockchain data or connect first-party data systems that they have with new first-party data systems, right? So I think again, when I look at Exorde, I think you guys are following the right path. I think you have a lot of possibility and potential, especially when Web2 starts to come in with those very large budgets. But anyways, my friend, it was an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you? Where can people find Exord?
So exorlabs.com, you have everything on it. You can reach out at hello@exorlabs.com. Ask your questions. You have ideas. You have a proof of concept. You want to try something. Uh, we have a self-serve API already, so technical users can already play and have fun. It's all documented. It's clear. But in any case, we're quite flexible, and we don't be afraid to talk to us. We're also quite active on LinkedIn because
Hmm.
we are trying to expand on the business side, of course. So LinkedIn is the place.
All right.
So you can find a lot of cool posts that we make, and sometimes they are really really insightful. They are based on our data. They are just trying to illustrate what can be done with this data. So it's riding trends, showcasing use cases, and so yeah. Don't hesitate to reach out. We are made to be flexible. Our pleasure is to serve anyone. So don't be afraid. It's within your reach.
Well, Matthias, thank you so much for joining us. I've certainly learned a lot. It's always great to connect with fellow GigaBrains like yourself. For all our friends out there, go check out Exord, go check out Matthias, and hope you enjoyed this episode of GigaBrains. We'll see you next time.